Hey, hello and welcome back students. Welcome to the MEG-03 video. So in this video we are going to cover Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. It is published in 1860 to 1861. A powerful novel about a poor orphan boy named Pip who suddenly gets wealth and tries to become a gentleman, only to discover that true worth has nothing to do with money or class. The author is Charles Dickens and published in 1860 to 1861. 1860 it is launched as a serial, but in 1861 it is published as a book. The genre is Victorian, Bildungsroman, and the setting is in Kent and London, early 19th century. So let's talk about Charles Dickens. He born in Portsmouth, England in 1812 and died in 1870. As a child, his father was sent a debater prison. Dickens was forced to work in a shoe polish factory at the age 12. This shaped his lifelong concern for the poor. He published most of his novels in monthly or weekly installments in magazines, like a TV series today. Readers eagerly waited for each episode. He is the most famous Victorian novelist. His works include Oliver Twist's A Tale of Two Cities, David Copperfield, Bleak House, and Great Expectations. He used humor, pathos, stares, and melodrama together, making readers laugh and cry at the same time. He was a fierce social critic. He attacked poverty, the class system, had bad schools, corrupt law, and child labor through his fictions. Great Expectations is considered one of his two greatest novels, the other being David Copperfield. Remember, Dickens is equal to social concise was plus vivid characters. Humor and pathos, his own difficult childhood made him a champion of the poor and the vulnerable. The next is the novel at a glance. Pip is a poor orphan boy living with his sister and her husband Joe Gargery, a blacksmith in the Kent matches. He suddenly receives a large fortune from a mysterious secret benefactor and moves to London to become a gentleman. He is in love with Estella, a cold, beautiful girl raised by the bitter, jilted Miss Havisham to break men's hearts. He assumes his benefactor is Miss Havisham, but the truth shocks him completely. The real benefactor is Magwitch, a convict Pip one helped as a child on the marshes. Pip must face the truth about class, wealth, loyalty, guilt, and what it truly means to be a good person. It is Bildungsroman, a coming-of-age novel about young person's growth, mistakes, and moral education. Remember this. The title Great Expectations is ironic. Pip's expectations of wealth and status bring him miserably, while his real great qualities were there all along in his humble origins. Now let's talk about some plot summary step by step. Number 1. The Graveyard and Magwitch. Young Pip visits his parents' grave on the Kent matches. He is terrified by the escaped convict Abel Magwitch, who threatens him into bringing food and a file. Pip helps him out of fear and pity. Number 2. Miss Havisham and Estella. Pip is invited to State's house to play with Estella, yard of the rich. Eccentric Miss Havisham was detailed on her wedding day and stops all clocks at the moment. She wears her wedding dress. Still, Estella is trained to be cold and cruel. Number 3. The Great Expectations. A lawyer, Mr. Jaggers, tells Pip he has a secret benefactor and will receive a large fortune. He must move to London and be raised as a gentleman. Pip assumes Miss Havisham is his benefactor. Number 4. London and becoming a gentleman. Pip moves to London with his friend Herbert Pocket. He lives lavishly, becomes snobbish, and is ashamed of Joe and his humble origins. He pushes Estella desperately, but she is cold to him. Number 5. The Shocking Truth. Magwitch secretly returns from Australia, where he was transported as a convict. He reveals that he is Pip's benefactor. His hard-earned money made Pip a gentleman out of gratitude. Number 6. Pip's transformations. Pip is horrified at first, a convict in his patron, but gradually he sees Magwitch's deep loyalty and love. He tries to help Magwitch escape England. Magwitch is caught, tried, and dies in prison. Number 7. Miss Havisham's feeling guilt over Estella and Pip accidentally sets herself on fire. Pip saves her, but she dies. Her manipulations of Estella is revealed. Number 8. The ending. Pip loses his fortune. He goes abroad to work honestly with Herbert. Years later, he meets Estella again, who has suffered in her marriage and softened. The ending is ambiguous. Dickens wrote two versions. Now let's talk on main characters. Pip, Philip Fairpen. He is a protagonist and narrator. A poor orphan who gets wealth and loses his moral grounding but eventually finds his true self. He narrates the story as an adult looking back. Abel Magwitch, the real benefactor, an escaped convict who becomes rich in Australia and uses his money to make Pip a gentleman out of gratitude, rough but deeply loyal and loving. Miss Havisham, the bitter, jilted woman, stopped all clocks on her wedding day when she was jilted lives in decay. Wearing her wedding dress uses Estella as a weapon against men. Estella, Pip's love, called and trained, raised by Miss Havisham to be beautiful but heartless. She warns Pip she cannot love, but Pip cannot stop loving her. She is also a victim. George, Pip's brother-in-law, true friend, a kind, simple blacksmith, represents true goodness, loyalty, and love. Everything Pip abandons when he becomes a gentleman. Herbert Pocket, Pip's best friend in London. Cheerful, honest, hardworking, a true gentleman by character, not by class. Shows Pip's what real gentlemanliness means. Mr. Jaggers, the lawyer, cold, powerful, always washing his hands, connects all the characters, knows everyone's secrets but reveals nothing. Bentley Drummel, the villain, arrogant, brutal aristocrat who marries Estella, represents the worth of the upper class, wealth without goodness. Now let's talk on Pip. Deep character analysis. Pip begins as a kind, innocent, grateful child. He helps Magwitch out of genuine pity despite his own poverty. His visits to Seti's house changes him. He sees his own corners through Estella's contaminated eyes and becomes ashamed of who he is. When he receives the fortune, he becomes snobbish, materialistic, and ungrateful. He is ashamed of Joe and avoids his origins. He has a constant sense of guilt about Magwitch, about Joe, about his own moral failures. This guilt runs through the whole novel. The revelation that Magwitch is his benefactor forces him to confront his own snobbery. A convict made him not a lady. He grows through suffering. He loses his fortune, nurses the dying Magwitch, the returns to his honest roots. As a narrator, the adult Pip judges his younger self with honesty and regret, showing he has learned and grown. Pip's journey is equal to the novel's central argument. True gentlemanliness is about characters, not class or money. Remember this, Pip is not a hero or a villain. He is a deeply human. He makes selfish mistakes, feels genuine guilt, and eventually grows into a truly good person. His journey is the novel. Abel Magwitch, deep analysis. First appears as a terrifying escaped convict, threatening desperate, covered in mud on the cold marshes. But Pip's small act of kindness, bringing him food and a file, changes Magwitch's life. No one had ever been kind to him before. Transported to Australia, Magwitch works hard, becomes rich, and dedicates his fortune to making Pip a gentleman. Now let's talk on his motivation. He wants to own a gentleman. By gentleman, it is his way of getting revenge on the class that always trusts him. But his love for Pip is also completely genuine. When he returns and Pip treats him with a disgust, he is heartbroken. Pip slowly recognizes Magwitch's true worth, his loyalty, his love, his dignity, and comes to feel deep affections for him. Magwitch is arrested, tried, and condemned to death. The law punishes him while it protects the wealthy criminals about him. He dies peacefully when Pip tells him his daughter, Estella, is alive and beautiful. A deeply moving scene. Magwitch is the moral heart of the novel. He is low by class and criminal recorded, but high in loyalty, love, and human worth. He exposes the hypocrisy of the class system. Now let's talk about Miss Havisham. She was jilted on her wedding day by Compassion, a con man. At the exact moment she received the letter, she stopped all clocks. She still wears her wedding dress, now rotted and yellow. The wedding cake still sits on the table, covered in cobwebs and mice. She lives in a frozen, decaying world, refusing to let time move. She cannot accept or process her grief and humiliations. She deliberately raises Estella to be heartless and to punish men. She uses a child as a weapon of revenge against all men. She is both villain and victim. She was genuinely wronged, but her response destroys both herself and Estella. When she realizes the harm she has done to Pip and Estella, she begs Pip's forgiveness, then she accidentally catches fire. Pip saves her, showing his true goodness. She is a symbol of time stopped, of refusing to live, refusing to heal, refusing to let go of the past. Remember this, Miss Havisham, the danger of frozen griefs. She chose to stop time rather than face pain, and in doing so, she became a monster who ruined lives, including her own. Now let's talk on themes. social class and what is a gentleman. Victorian England was rigidly divided by class, birth, wealth, and manners determined your worth in society. Pip believes that becoming wealthy and gentlemanly manners will make him true, better, and worthy of Estella. But Dickens systematically destroys this belief throughout the novel. The gentleman Drumble is brutal and cruel. The common Joe is gentle, loyal, and loving. The source of Pip's gentlemanly fortune is a convict. Dickens shows that wealth is often built on crime and exploitation. Pip's snobbery about his origins is shows to be deeply wrong. He abandons the genuinely good Joe for shallow London society. Dickens arguments a true gentleman is defined by character, honesty, loyalty, kindness, not by money, birth, or manners. Remember this, the whole novel is answering one question: what makes a person truly great? Dickens answer: not money or class, but goodness, loyalty, and concise. Now let's talk on theme, guilt and concise. Guilt runs through the entire novel like a dark thread. Pip feels guilty from the very first chapter. As a child, he steals food for Magwitch and feels he is a criminal. He sees himself as a naturally weak. As a young man, he feels guilty about abandoning Joe and his humble origins for the sake of wealth and Estella. Guilt connects Pip to Magwitch. Both are marked by criminal world from childhood, though Pip never commits a real crime. Dickens shows that the truly guilty people are the wealthy and powerful. Compassion ruins Magwitch's life and gets a lighter sentence because he is a gentleman. Pip's concise eventually leads him to do the right thing to help Magwitch escapes, to forgive Miss Havisham, to reconnect with Joe. The novel argues that having a concise, feeling guilt and acting on it is what makes a person truly human or moral. Remember this, Pip guilt is not weakness, it is the sign of his moral sensitivity. His concise is what separates him from the truly corrupt characters around him. Now let's talk on theme, ambition and self-improvement. Pip has a deep desire to improve himself, to rise above the origins, to become worthy of Estella and the world of wealth. His ambitions for self-improvement is initially positive. He wants to learn, grow and better himself. But his ambition becomes corrupted. He wants to improve his social status and appearance, not his actual character. In London, he becomes idle, spends recklessly, and looks down on working people. The opposites of true self-improvement. The real self-improvement happens at the end, when he loses his fortune and must working honestly, humbly and hard alongside Herbert. Herbert Pocket is the ideal contrast. He has no great fortune but improves himself genuinely through honest work and good character. Dickens' messages true self-improvement is moral and internal, not social and external. You cannot buy or inherit a better self. Pip's greatest improvement comes not when he gets rich, but when he loses everything and chooses to live honestly. That is his real great expectations fulfilled. Now let's talk on theme, love, obsession and rejections. Pip's love for Estella is central to the novel, but it is less love and more obsession. She tells him repeatedly and she cannot love, but he cannot stop. Estella was deliberately trained by Miss Havisham to be cold and to hurt men. She is herself a victim of his upbringing. Pip's obsession with Estella drives many of his words, decisions. His desire to be a gentleman is largely about becoming the worthy of her. Estella marries Drumble, a brutal, cruel man. Miss Havisham's training backfire on herself. Estella suffers in her marriage, and it humanizes her. Suffering teaches her what Miss Havisham's coldness could not. True love in the novel is shown not by Pip and Estella, but by Joe and Biddy. Simple, faithful, honest love. The novel suggests the Pip's love for Estella is partially a love for the class and status she represents, not purely personal. Remember this, Estella and Pip's relationship shows how class and social conditioning can poison love. True love, like Joe's, is simple, loyal, and unconditional. Now, let's talk on crime, law, and justice. The novel is full of criminals, lawyers, and courts. But Dickens shows that the legal system does not deliver true justice. Compassion. A conman from a good family gets a lighter sentence than Magwitch because he looks and speaks like a gentleman. Magwitch is transported to Australia for life but returns out of love and gratitude. The law condemns him to death for returning. Mr. Jaggers, the lawyer, is powerful and successful, but morally ambiguous. He washes his hands constantly, symbolizing his desire to wash away the criminal world he works in. The wealthy criminal, compassion escapes real punishment. The poor criminal Magwitch faces the full force of the law. Dickens exposes how class determines justice. The rich and protected, the poor are punished. True justice in the novel is not legal but moral. Pip's decision to help Magwitch, regardless of the law, is presented as the right thing to do. Dickens shows that the law protects class and property, not actual justice or human worth. The novel asks us to judge people by their humanity, not their criminal record. Now let's talk on identity and self-knowledge. Who is Pip really? The novel is a long journey towards self-knowledge. Pip must discover who he truly is beneath and wealth and ambition. As a child, he has a natural good identity, kind, imaginative, loyal. As a young man, he puts on a false identity, the gentleman, and loses himself. The revelation about Magwitch shatters his false identity completely. Everything he believed about himself is wrong. Through suffering, loss, and moral growth, he rebuilds a true identity, honest, humble, compassionate. The fact that he narrates the story himself as an adult shows has achieved self-knowledge. He can see the judge his past self clearly. Estella to discover her true identity late. Through suffering, she connects to her real feeling and becomes human. Great Expectations is ultimately a novel about finding your true self, not the self society wants you to be or money can buy, but the self built through experience, concise, and choice. Now, let's talk on narrative technique and style. First person narrator. Pip tells his own story as an adult looking back. This gives us both the child's experience and the adult moral judgments simultaneously. Dramatic irony. The adult Pip and the reader often knows more than the young Pip, creating irony and suspense throughout. Foreshadowing. Dickens plants subtle hints about future revelations, for example, the convict on the marshes, the name Magwitch. Memorable characters. Dickens creates larger than life characters, Miss Havisham, Jaggers, Wemix, each representing a theme or idea. Setting as a simple, the dark marshes, guilt and dangers. Set is house, frozen time and decay. London is equal to false ambitions and moral corruptions. Humor and pathos. Dickens mixes comedy, Wickham's castle, public cook's absurdity. With deep sadness, Magwitch's death, Joe's visit to London. Serial structure published in weekly installments. Each section ends with a dramatic hook to keep readers coming back like a TV series. Two ending. Dickens originally wrote a sad ending, Pip and Estella part forever. His friend Burr Lytton persuaded him to write a more hopeful ending, both ending and significant. Dickens' genius is making a personal and a political inspirable. Pip's individual story is also the story of Victorian England's class system in its injustice and false values. Now let's talk on important exam questions. Number 1. Critically analysis the character of Pips is great in Great Expectations. Hint. Cover his innocence, his snobbery, his guilt, his moral growth and role as a narrator, the journey from false to true gentlemanliness. Number 2. Discuss the theme of social class in Great Expectations. Victorian class system, Pip's ambition, true versus false gentlemanliness, Joe versus Drumble, Magwitch's wealth, Dickens' critique. Number 3. Analysis the character of Miss Havisham and her significance. Gilded bride, stopped clocks, rising Estella using Pip, guilt and fire scene, symbol of frozen grief. Number 4. What is the role of Magwitch in the novel? How does he change Pip? First encounter, secret benefactor, returns, Pips discuss then love, his death, what he represents about class and loyalty. Number 5. Discuss Great Expectations as a Bilge's romance. Defining the Bilge's romance, coming of age, Pip's journey from childhood to adulthood, moral education's key stage of growth. Number 6. How does Dickens use settings symbolically in Great Expectations? The marshes, guilt and danger, set his house, decay time, London, corruptions and ambition, the forge, simple and godness. Number 7. Write a note on Dickens' narrative technique in the Great Expectations. First person narration, dual perspective, child versus adult Pip, dramatic irony, foreshadowing, and two endings. Number 8. Discuss the theme of guilt and concise in Great Expectations. Pip's childhood guilt about Joe, guilt about Magwitch, how concise drives his moral recovery. Now let's talk on key quotes to remember. I am what you designed me to be. Estella blames Miss Havisham to making her cold and incapable of love, the results of deliberate manipulations. It is a most miserable thing to feel ashamed of home. Pip reflects on his own snobbery, recognizing that his shame about Joe was morally wrong. Take nothing on its look, take